Blog Talk Radio.
Hello and welcome to our program. My name is Ellie Nieves and I'm a women's leadership speaker, writer, and coach. I'm also the founder and president of Leadership Strategies for Women. I work with and speak for companies, organizations, and associations that want to develop their emerging leaders into effective managers and executives. I also coach women who want to achieve more both personally and professionally. Through my speaking and coaching programs, I help individuals and organizations to develop leadership skills and set strategic goals that will help them to achieve their vision for success. For more information, you can go to my website at www.leadershipstrategiesforwomen.com. The title of our show today is 5 Principles of Exemplary Leadership, What the Most Successful Women Do Right. And our guest is Emily Bennington. Emily Bennington is co-author of the very first book that every new grad should own. The title of the book is Effective Immediately, How to Fit In, Stand Out, and Move Up at Your First Real Job. She is a frequent speaker on the topic of career success and provides organizational savvy training to new grads and their employers. Emily has been featured on Fox Business, CNN, and ABC, as well as quoted in publications including the Wall Street Journal, the New York Post, and Washington Post Express. She is a contributing writer for Monster.com and a featured blogger for the Huffington Post, Forbes Women, and U.S. News and World Report. Emily's second book, A Career Guide for Young Women, will be published in the fall of 2012 by Amazon. She can be reached online at www.emilybennington.com and on Twitter and Facebook as well. Emily, welcome to the show.
Great. Thanks so much for having me, Ellie.
I'm so excited to have you on the show. I love your topics and I love your energy, and I'm looking forward to hearing more during our conversation.
Excellent.
So, Emily, share with us a little bit about your background.
Sure. I got into training new grads and really career professionals in general accidentally because when I graduated from college, I didn't have a job. I hadn't gone to the career fair. I thought that I knew a lot more about success and entering the workforce than I really did. And when I did find a job, I made a lot of rookie mistakes. For example, I thought that my success was dependent upon me as an individual and not so much on my ability to work in a team and motivate the members of my team. I wore the wrong things and all sorts of fun mistakes. Well, not so fun for me, but just lots of mistakes that new grads make when they transition from college to career. But I was really, really lucky because I had an outstanding mentor who really took the time to coach me and teach me some of the things that I needed to know, to pull me aside when I was making mistakes and not embarrass me in front of my coworkers, but to correct me politely and respectfully on the side. And I just learned so much from him that I started to follow him around with a notebook, really, and just write down some things. And then after about a year or so, I had quite a collection of things that I had learned from him, and I said that I wanted to put it in a book. And, we didn't know anybody in New York. We didn't have any publishing contacts at all. And so it took about 7 years from the time that I said I really want to put this in a book to the time that the book came out. But the book came out. It's Effective Immediately, How to Fit In, Stand Out, and Move Up at Your First Real Job. It came out last year. And then just as a result of writing the book, I got really passionate about career work, helping people succeed in their career, and so things just kind of took off from there. And now I'm on my second book and a solopreneur out teaching new grads and others how to succeed, and it all started with my own mistakes.
Fabulous, fabulous. So your first book, which you just mentioned, Effective Immediately, was written for new grads that are just entering the workforce. So why did you decide to focus your next book on women in particular?
Well, as I mentioned, I wrote Effective Immediately because I made a lot of rookie mistakes in my own transition from college to career, and writing for women came about that very same way. I had been promoted. It was a few years into my career, and I'd been promoted to a director-level job, and I was responsible for managing employees at this point, and it was a totally new thing for me. I was thrown into it without any training or experience or background, and so I was nervous about it. And to compound that, I was responsible for managing somebody who was about 15 years senior to me and had been with the company for all of that time, and so I was nervous about delegating assignments to her, actually. So the first time that I had to do it, I almost had to psych myself up and say, okay, this is my job, and I'm going to go in there and I'm going to be respectful, but I'm going to delegate this assignment. And so I went in there and I did that, and I was feeling very good about my leadership abilities that I was just flexing. And then I noticed on the corner of her desk that she had some leftover Tupperware from lunch. And because I was so nervous about whether or not she would like me, this is the classic woman thing, we always want to be liked, that I picked up her dirty Tupperware and I looked at her and I was like, can I take this for you? And she looked at me like, who does that? I don't think my boss, who was a man, would have come in and offered to clean up her desk and take her Tupperware. But, when I tell this story, a lot of people say, Emily, you were being nice. What's wrong with being nice? And I say that there's nothing wrong with being nice whatsoever, but what I was doing was wrong because I was unsure of my own leadership potential, and I was overcompensating by trying to be nice, and there's the problem. There was the rub. So I was like, well, this is interesting. I wonder if there's any other women who are going through this, who are compromising our own power, and I wanted to write about it. And so I launched a survey and interviewed women across the country and found that I wasn't the only one, and so that's where the idea, the genesis of this next book came from.
Wow, so you mentioned your survey, and I know that you conducted a survey on gender bias, and more than 600 women executives have taken that survey. So what have you learned from your research so far?
Yeah, I covered a lot of ground in the survey, but one of the most interesting responses came to the question, would you rather work for a man or a woman? And just over half of the respondents, so about 55%, said that they just wanted a good leader and that gender didn't matter. So that's good, right? We want that. But when given a choice, 32% said that they would actively choose to work for a man. And if given a choice, only 11% of the respondents said that they would actively choose a female boss. And it's all women who took the survey. So by a 3-to-1 margin, when given a choice, women preferred to work with men. And, as you would expect, this question in particular had a lot of comments about it. And so when I was reading through all the comments, trying to dissect why the number of women who would choose to work for women managers was so low, there was one pattern that emerged. And the number one reason why women said that they would prefer to work with men is that men were seen as being more direct in their language. It wasn't, they didn't come into the office and give inauthentic seeming chit-chat before delegating an assignment, which is something that women were perceived to have done, which I can certainly relate to given my Tupperware story. But yeah, the number one reason why women wanted to work with men was that men were perceived to be more direct. So I think that for women who are looking to advance their own leadership skills in the workforce, they should really examine how direct they're being in their communications. That's not to say that you don't want to have niceties, that you don't want to balance your directness with, some common courtesy, obviously, but that directness was central in the comments.
Wow. So in what areas did women that you surveyed say that they most wanted to improve?
For themselves?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, well, they wanted to improve for the most part in a couple main areas. One was almost a full third of women who took the survey said that they wanted to improve their own assertiveness and their own ability to be more direct. And so for women who are looking to improve their own assertiveness, I always tell them not to bury the lead. It's a common journalistic principle that if you're writing an article, editors have been saying this for years, you don't bury the lead. You put the most important facts from the story up front so that you can hook your reader into reading more. And I think that women who are communicating in the workforce need to understand that process as well. So before just spouting off something in a meeting or popping into an office to delegate something, like really take the time to say and think to yourself in advance, okay, what is the most important point that I want to get to convey here, and how can I put that up front in the most compelling, articulate way? So assertiveness and being more direct was an area where women said they wanted to improve, and also time management and organizational skills was another area. That was another full 30% of women who took the survey said that they wanted to improve in those two areas as well.
So do you believe that women are leaning out of their careers in search for more work-life balance?
Well, that's interesting. You know, I had an answer to this, and when people ask me this question, and it's funny because over the weekend I was reading an article in Forbes magazine, and they were talking about this very issue. And it said that women have finally come to a place where we have real choice. So this is exactly, I was speaking at a conference a couple months ago with Gloria Steinem, and it's like, wow, this is the dream that the feminists started, that women have a real choice in their career beyond a nurse or beyond a secretary or beyond a teacher, and this is fantastic. So men, on the other hand, women can work or women can stay home. Men, on the other hand, are not quite that, quote unquote, lucky. So this article in Forbes was saying that, perhaps it's time that we should be marching for men so that they could have a choice to be home and stay, not be marginalized for staying home with their families while the women goes out to work. So I thought that was pretty interesting. But all of the research that I have conducted personally and all of the research that I have seen on women in the workforce typically says that when women leave a job, that oftentimes it comes down to the fact that she's leaving because she doesn't feel like she's being managed properly. So there was a group called Catalyst that has been tracking women at work since the 60s, and they found that when they studied 4,000 MBAs over the first 10 years of their career, what they found was that only 3% of the women who left the workforce left to raise children. Women were far more likely to leave their positions for faster advancement, more money, general career change. So I don't dismiss child-rearing as a factor in the advancement of women, but I take it off the table in the presentations that I do because all of the research that I've seen, including my own, says that leadership is the bigger issue. It all goes back to the saying that people join companies and leave managers. So I think that that's what we should focus on, and I think that that's one of the reasons why the work that I do and the work that you do is so incredibly important.
That's great information. So you talk a lot about career fulfillment in the moment. What does that mean to you? Yeah, so this is a lesson that I was honestly about 33 years old before I learned. We spend so much time rushing through life and trying to get somewhere else, and we can't climb the ladder fast enough, and we can't get to that next rung fast enough. And, I've really found in my own life that I was so preoccupied thinking about what it's going to take for me to get that brass ring, what it's going to take for me to achieve, become a best-selling author and speak around the world and do all this stuff, that I was missing the moments in my life
that were right in front of me. I was missing, I blinked and my youngest child turned 6, and I'm like, wait a minute, I was so busy trying to figure out how I was going to get booked at this conference in New York than I was about appreciating the moments that are right in front of me. And so when I learned to stop and appreciate the moments that were right in front of me, and this includes being with my family, but it also includes doing the best job I can possibly do and the work that's right in front of me, honestly, like, that whole paradigm shift awakens something in me. And so I think that one of the things that I definitely try and do now, one of the lessons that I try and impart on women now is that, it is okay to be ambitious. That is absolutely fine. I'm ambitious too, and I'm not going to discourage you from being ambitious. But I encourage women to have more patience with the process of success. And, I was watching one of your videos up on YouTube, and you said that things will happen on their own time frame, which isn't always your time frame.
Right.
But, your line of holding that image, I think, is so incredibly important. So you can hold the image of what it is that you want to achieve, and that's fantastic. And to get there, you have to know what the next right thing is that will take you to that ultimate image, that ultimate place of where you want to be. But while you're doing that, you can't let that image for tomorrow drive you crazy today.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's where a lot of people kind of miss the boat. And so it's very important to be in the moment in your career. So, plan for tomorrow. That's great. That's fantastic. But just don't squander today while you're doing it, because it's the work that you're doing right now that sets the stage for the success that you're going to have tomorrow.
I love that concept and perspective. It really does add a new aspect to work-life balance, right?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
Great.
And there really is no such thing as work-life balance anyway, right? I mean, I just, it's sort of, I've heard it described now as a work-life blur, where, everything is blurry. I mean, our phones keep us tied to work all night. I don't know about you, but one of my New Year's resolutions is that I am trying to break the habit of waking up in the morning, and the first thing that I do is reach over and grab my phone to see what kind of emails, what's happening in the day ahead. So that work-life balance is bunk. So it's more about just figuring out what are the top priorities in your life and arranging your day to give equal weight to all of them.
Fabulous. So, Emily, you have an online column on Forbes called Women We Love, and you interview everyone from Fortune 1000 CEOs to supermodels. What are some things that you've learned from interviewing women who are at the top of their fields?
Yeah, that column has been really, really fun, and I've had the fantastic opportunity to interview, Jan Fields, the president of McDonald's, the maternity powerhouse, Liz Lang, fashion editors, you mentioned supermodels, best-selling authors. All of them are in different industries, but all of them have one thing in common, and that's that they're at the top of their industries, and they all have such incredible stories to tell about how they got there. But if I had to say what I kind of pulled from all of them, or some of my most favorite things to pull from all of them, I think Jan Fields, who is the president of McDonald's, she said something that I thought was really, really interesting. She said that as she was coming, this is a woman who started on fries, by the way, which I think is incredibly important for people to know, that Jan Fields, the president of McDonald's, the woman who sits in Ray Kroc's office, started on fries. And as she was moving up through McDonald's in her career, she said that she had some opportunities some significant career opportunities that she passed up because her daughter was in high school. And she wanted her daughter, she had made a promise to her daughter that she was going to stay in one place for the 4 years while her daughter was in high school. And so one of the things that she said was that you sort of, different periods of your life, you pick the priority that you have at that period in your life. Sometimes it's going to be work, in your early 20s it might be work. As you get older and you develop, you have kids or whatnot, those kids become the priority. But you pick the priority and then you center your life around that priority. And she said that that's the way that she was able to achieve balance in her career. And I just thought that was so fantastic because she wasn't trying to achieve everything all at once. She was picking different priorities at different stages and focusing on those. Also, I had interviewed Tori Johnson, who's the workforce contributor for Good Morning America, and one of the things that she said that I thought was everybody should know is that she said that the biggest mistake that job seekers or business owners make is that they have what she called lack of clarity or an exposing panic. And so one of the things that she was saying is that when people are interviewed about their or just asked in the street about what kind of jobs they're seeking or what their work is, that sometimes they're so desperate for anything that they just end up telling hardship stories. Mm-hmm. And one of the things that Tori was saying is do not tell people your hardship stories, because when you do that, you elicit the response from the other person of, oh, gee, gosh, that must be tough, when what you want is to elicit the reaction from the other person that is, wow, you're doing some good work here. I've got to introduce you to so-and-so. So I think sometimes we get into that habit of feeling like, we have to tell people that how tough it is. We have to tell people what's really going on, and that's not true at all. It goes back to personal branding that you talk a lot about. Figure out what that image is that you want to project out in the world and make sure that your actions underscore that, and you're going to get the reaction that you want from people.
Great advice. Love that. So, Emily, you're on your book right now that you're working on for career women. Mm-hmm. So can you tell us about that and what makes it different from what's already out there in the market?
Yeah. Effective Immediately is full of advice for new grads, but it's really sort of a refresher for anyone regardless of what stage you're in the workforce. But it's full of practical things that you can physically do to stand out at work. And the next book, the book that I'm writing right now, is more about things that you should think. So it's a whole lot deeper, and it goes down a few levels. It touches a little bit on how to bring your spirituality into the workplace, not in a divisive way by any stretch, but not in a way that projects onto other people, but in a way that allows you to control yourself and to control your side of the street, and what you need to know about that and how you can leverage your spirituality in the workplace to allow you to make positive decisions that will hopefully create positive situations that create positive results for you. So it's definitely worlds deeper than Effective Immediately. And I was telling my husband over the weekend, I feel like I went from, the first Beatles album was like Meet the Beatles, and it was just like pop stuff. I went from like Meet the Beatles to Sgt. Pepper in 2 years.
That's great. That's great. We wish you a lot of success with that book. And do you have any New Year's resolutions?
Yeah, I do, actually. I know a lot of people aren't big fans of New Year's resolutions, but I am. I think it's always good to evaluate where you've been in the last year and focus on where you want to go, Hold that image, Ellie.
Right.
But I spoke at a conference recently with Gretchen Rubin, and she's the author of a book called The Happiness Project, and I am just blatantly going to steal her process, but at least I'm giving her credit for it. But she created this checklist of things that she wants to do daily. So it's little things like no sugar in her diet, 5-minute meditation. She wants to make her bed. She has this process where she can't keep a journal, so she's keeping a one-sentence journal because that seemed like more manageable to her. But every single night she'll sit down and say, she has literally a checklist, did I do this today? Did I do that today? Did I da-da-da-da-da, and go on down through it. And she was like, the way that I hold myself accountable every night for achieving these has just shot the productivity through the roof. And I think that that's where I've gone wrong in some of my resolutions in the past, is where I've said, this is something that I want to do, but I don't actually create a plan to get it done. And so I'm going to my resolution is to take Gretchen's advice and create that daily worksheet that every single night I can say that I either did or didn't do exactly what I set out to do. And I just love the idea of that structure and bringing that structure to your day, because I know that you cannot do that process and look back on everything that you've done without making some substantial growth in yourself and your career.
Yeah, I really think that that's the way to accomplish any goal, right, is to look at the macro goal and then figure out how you're going to take those small steps to get there. And I think that, Gretchen's plan and then the plan that you're about to follow is an awesome one. Thank you so much for sharing that.
Yeah, absolutely. It's like, the constant New Year's resolution of I'm going to lose weight.
Right.
Well, unless you say, I always tell people, the goal is not to say I'm going to lose weight. The goal is to say I'm going to exercise for 30 minutes a day, 3 times a week, because you don't just lose weight by saying you're going to lose weight. You lose weight by eating less and moving more. So make those your goals, and then you'll see success.
Awesome. So, Emily, where can our listeners get copies of your book?
Sure. Effective Immediately is on Amazon, and Barnes & Noble and wherever books are sold. So you can check it out there. And my website is emilybennington.com, and I'm on Facebook at facebook.com/Emily Bennington and Twitter at Emily Bennington. So really tough to find, Ellie.
Well, Emily, thank you so much. You've been a great guest, and thank you for just taking the time today to share with us about your books and about your perspectives and the survey results. And I know that our listeners are going to walk away with some great leadership strategies that they're going to be able to implement in their careers and in their day-to-day lives.
Oh, thank you so much for having me, and I hope you have a Merry Christmas and a wonderful 2012 and beyond. Keep in touch.
Thank you so much. And to all our listeners, thank you so much for tuning in. I hope you will connect with me on Facebook, and you can run a search on Facebook for the Leadership Strategies for Women page. Until next time, God bless.